Good morning, everybody. This is CAD 212, Class 15 on October 10th, on October 7th. Today in class, we're going to be talking about the renovation. Everybody should have been finished the renovation from the first model from Monday. I believe everybody's got that turned in yet. I haven't had a chance to review those yet. And then we're going to begin work on that today. So in order to do that, you'll need to save the original file as a new file and begin that as the renovation model. You'll entitle that renovation model. What we're going to review today in Revit are elevations. We'll talk about that a little bit and how that drives stuff in Revit. Talk about the level tool, a little thing I call raise the roof. And then we'll talk about how we're going to work on our second and third floors and begin work. So there's a new file in Canvas called Final Project. That's live now, and there's some information in there. And there's also, I think I made the mod live already. Let me check. All right, and now that mod is live as well, so that's good. All right, before we get started, I would like to open up the floor to any questions that you have about the work that you've done. I think a couple of people had shot me an email in regards to questions that you had about creating this floor plan. If there's any issues that anybody was having, let's go ahead and go over that now, and then we can jump into today's lecture. So any questions, y'all? Okay, if there's no questions today, we'll go ahead and get started with the lecture. If you do have anything that comes up, remember you can text me and I'll try and answer you in real time as fast as possible. And if you have something that's a little bit more complex, text me also, and we'll set up a time for us to meet and we can discuss those issues that you're having at that time. Also, on your midterm, most of the grades are pretty good. Did try to make as many notes on there as possible, issues that I saw. If you have a question about something that was on your midterm and you don't understand it, set up a time with me as well, and we can kind of go over it and get that corrected so you're not unsure about what to do with that. So let's talk about today's class. So everyone should have their original model of their commercial building completed. What I want you to do is open that original model, and I want you to save a new file of that as your renovation model. So what we'll do, this is the one that I kind of completed. We have a lovely bland drawing right here, very institutional. What I'd like you to do is go into File, Save As, Project, and then rename this project as your Final Project Renovation, and we'll begin work on that. So that way, at the end of this project, you'll have your original, and then you'll have your renovation, and we can see the progress that you've made between the two. So once you have that saved, let's just talk about a few things today. You don't have to follow along, but I do want to explain a few things about how things work in Revit, and then we'll go into how we're going to apply that. So the first thing I have on here is elevations. As we've kind of dabbled with a little bit in the first half of the semester, we have our different elevations here. And as you've noticed, as you've been working with this, that these elevations do drive a lot of information within Revit. And a lot of those elevations are tied to these levels that we have here. As you've noticed, as we've progressed through here, depending on what you're looking at, you'll notice that these different families are tied to these different levels. The base level at which they're drawn at, and then the constraints at which they're applied to. And what I mean by that is that all of these different levels are driving forces within Revit. So by adding these or having them set up prior to the beginning of our drawing, or even adding them later, will help us coordinate our model even better. What I mean by that is if you have a raised house, you'll start off with your different levels, and that way you'll have a level 0, and then we would add a level right here, which would be your sill level, and then we would add different ones from there. Best way to really experience that is for us to add new levels as we progress through here. And in order to do that, you're going to go to, move this out of the way. You're going to go to your architecture panel, your architecture tab, your datum panel, and your level tool. So we can add new levels that'll drive the forces that we're going to be needing that are going to be created in this model. So just to add a new level right now, I'm just going to go ahead and click on that level tool. And you'll notice I'll have a location line that kind of pops up there, that dotted line. And then I also have a temporary dimension line that's going to give me that elevation, that height elevation. I don't need to pay too much close attention to that right now because there's ways I can change that later. So I'm just going to add one more dimension line to this right now. And I'm just going to randomly put it at any height. But the thing that I really want to pay attention to is where that location line is attached. Because if I attach those correctly, they'll all move in unison. So right now I'm going to go ahead and attach this one here arbitrarily at like any height, but I do want that location line to be active. So I'm going to click and drag all the way over, and then you'll notice another location line becomes active on the other side. So I'm going to click on that as well. And I'm just going to add one. So the reason I wanted to make sure that they were all attached is now I can move these all in unison. You can see how that would be very helpful, especially if you have a lot of different elevations that you want to go ahead and move them all together at the same time. Same with this side. Because some of the things that I've noticed is when you were creating sheets, especially of elevations, you have these elevation markers that were like all the way over here and going over the title block and kind of hanging off. So whenever you want to adjust the size of the drawing or make sure that all these are within your sheet scale, just drag that in close to the drawing, and that'll make things a lot easier for you. And you'll notice when I popped in this new elevation that we have level 3 at 30 feet 6 inches. Well, I can change the names of these levels. So if I wanted this to be like, you know, roof level, I can type that in. It's going to give me this message here, this box asking if you would like to rename corresponding views. You're going to always want to put yes, because that will populate the new name throughout your Revit model. If you don't put yes, then it's just going to show up in this elevation, and that can be very confusing. So make sure that when you have, would you like to rename corresponding views, you put yes. And on here, you'll notice that in your project browser, when we added this roof level, now in our floor plans, we have a roof level floor plan as well. So we can access that floor plan also. Another thing that we can change on here is the height elevation. So here this is set to 30 feet. If I wanted to change that, I just want to click on that, make it active, and then I can change it to whatever height I want. If I just wanted it to be 15 feet, I can change it to 15 feet, and then you can adjust it from there as needed. This way you can see if we have our level 1, which is our site plan, and then we had a raised house, which is going to be on piers. We could add a piers level right here, make that like 1 foot, and you can progress up that way. So it's definitely a way that you need to think about organizing your drawing before you get started, because things will get tied to these in particular levels and it gets a little bit confusing. So whenever you can, if you have a design that you're working with, you want to lay out your levels at the beginning of your drawing. when we're doing a renovation, we have a little bit more complex tasks as far as laying out the levels, and that's why we're starting with an original drawing and not with our different levels. We're adding them in. So another couple things that you can do with these drawing tags, you'll notice over here that we have a little check mark on this side, and we have a check mark on that side. If you click in that check mark, you'll notice that that information will populate on both sides, and then I can take it away from this side, so way that you can kind of balance out the levels. Sometimes you'll want them on one side and not the other. It just gives you more options. So here we have them on both sides. I'm going to turn this one off. Also, you can see how these could get very compact and complex, and we kind of get, if they get close together, it'd be hard to read. Well, if you zoom in here on this little like zigzag part right here, if you click on that, you see that's going to break that apart. And then we can just move these nodes. So it's a little bit easier to read. But if that doesn't work, you can just pull it back together, and it'll pull together as well. You'll also notice they have a lock on here. So we unclick that lock. Now we can move that particular one individually. So there's a lot of different ways that you can adjust this. These still move in unison, but that one that we unlocked moves separately. We'd have to realign it on here and lock it again in order to make sure that that moves in unison with the others. So what we're going to be doing when we start our renovation is we're going to be adding a couple of new levels, and we'll be assigning new information to each level. Any questions about what I've got going on here so far? All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a second floor to this building really quickly. And I'm going to do that by changing this level to 20 feet. And notice when I click on my roof, it says level 1 with a base offset of 13 feet. Let's just play with this a little bit and see what happens when we change this. Can we go to roof level and apply? So this looks kind of weird because not only is it above the roof level it's attached to, it's got this space in between. So what's going on here? It's attached to the roof level, but remember that offset from base was set to 13 feet. Well, let's change that to 0. And that looks actually more appropriate. So what happened here was when I changed that roof level and I reattached the roof to the roof level, it moved all of that up in unison. But when I had that height offset, that base offset, it kind of skewed things more. Let me undo that. So here we have just the regular, I changed the base level to roof level, but with that offset, I have this extra space, so that's not correct. So what I want to do is I'm going to get rid of this space, have that set to 0. So now my roof level is actually on the roof level. So let's go to 3D. Notice it changed in 3D as well. And notice since I had my walls attached to my roof, when I raised the roof, it also raised the walls as well. So let me hide this. So now if I take a look inside my building, I've got my ceilings, I've got that space for my second floor. What I want to do at this point is I want to go to my level 2. And in this area, I'm going to go ahead and add that new second floor. And per the instructions, just to make it easier on everybody, I'd like everybody to use the wood joist 10-inch ceramic tile floor. So what that means, question?
I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. For the base offset, what was that number again?
You're not going to use, that was just an example of what not to do.
Okay.
Yeah, for that, there's not going to actually be a base offset. So when I had that base offset on there, that showed you that there was an error, that roof was too high. So I removed that. So that roof was actually attached to the correct level. Let's see, south. So this is the correct view. There was an error in that. It had like whatever base offset there was, but what you want to have for correct attachment is this roof to be on your roof level. Does that make more sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right. So now we're going back to level 2. And in my level 2, I want to go ahead and go to my architecture tab, my floor tool, and here I'm going to add the wood joist 10-inch ceramic tile. And since this is the interior, I want to pick the interior wall lines and just put this second floor across the entire second floor. And within that green check mark, the floor roof overlaps the highlighted walls. Would you like to join geometry? Here, it doesn't really matter which way you want to go on this. We'll just put yes. And let me go to 3D. So here we are in 3D. And you can see I've got my second floor added. So when you add your second floor, there's a couple of things that we need to adjust on here. Obviously, the first floor is not flush with the second floor, and the ceiling is not flush with that. We don't want to have this plenum here between this gap. There may be times that you do want to plenum. Those of you in the MEP class, you'll notice that we have added some air conditioning equipment and stuff within this space. But in this one, we're going to go ahead and adjust it without a plenum. And that's just part of the design scheme. So remember, in order to adjust these so they're more flush with this space right here, they kind of get rid of this. We want to pick, well, first we'll pick an individual piece. And here we have, this is our ceiling, our level 1 ceiling, and height offset of 8 feet. Here I can change my height offset. I think the correct height is 9'2". I'll hit apply. Actually, that's too high because as you can see, when I look through the front of this, my ceiling is now within my first floor, my second floor. So let me change this to 8'11". Yeah, that's better. And that's, I just know it's kind of 9'2", 8'11", just because I've done this for a while. And when we're working in Revit, just kind of, you know, sketching, and it's just kind of a guess and looking, you know, estimated guess kind of thing, just like we did with the soffit. So that comes to 8'11". So we want to set all of our ceilings at this point to 8'11". Remember, I'm going to highlight one ceiling. I'm going to select all instances visible in view. It'll select all my ceilings that I need to adjust at this time. And I'm going to change that height offset on all of them to 8'11". So now all my ceilings are flush with the bottom of the second floor. I want to do the same with the interior walls. I'll go ahead and highlight one, deselect all instances visible in view, and I'll do my height constraint set to 8'11" also. So you can see just by manipulating those heights, Now my ceilings and my walls are flush with the bottom of the second floor. Let me hide the second floor for a second. So you can see how those are flush there. And remember, depending on the design, you may want that plenum available in order to run your ductwork and things like that. But in particular instances, we're not going to do that in this class. So we just want to make sure that all of our floors are flush with the ceilings and the walls below them. So let's see how this is going to apply to the assignment for this week. Let's go ahead and jump into Canvas and into your final project commercial. The one that I've just made active is final project schematic design. We'll go ahead and open that up. And this is also available in files as well under your final project file. If we open this up for schematic design phase, this kind of gives you the instructions for this project for this week. So just to go over some information in regards to schematic design, that's one of the phases that we're work on in any type of, when we tackle any kind of architectural project. We'll be discussing the different phases. This is actually the second phase in the design project when people talk about SDs or schematic designs. And I'm just going to read through this for you real quick. So the purpose of schematic design phase is to develop a plan of action regarding how a building will look based on the client's budget and specific design requests. The architect prepares rough plans or schematics that show a general model of where rooms will be located, the placement of doors and windows, and how the building will be constructed overall. Some architects consider schematic design the most important time spent interacting with clients. At this stage, they have frequent meetings in order to keep clients abreast of work and direction. And during these meetings, architects present drawings that describe design ideas with respect to budget. So what does this mean? This means that this is where you get to kind of play. This is where the interesting stuff comes in. You kind of can flex your design skills and come up with different ideas. You'll meet with the client and discuss their ideas. If this ends, we'll just start a new one. Discuss their ideas, what they want to do with it, and things like that. So this half of the class allows you to be a little bit more creative. What I'll be doing is every week I'll be giving you some information in regards to what is going to be expected in this building and how things are going to be changed. Especially in this phase is going to be interesting because now you will get some basic information on what is required, and then you can go back, you can kind of play with some ideas, kind of figure it out, and then we'll look at those next week. So your initial request on this project is we're going to add 2 floors to this commercial building. On the second floor, once you have that added, similar to what we've done before, that second floor should contain 4 office spaces, restrooms for women and men, a janitor's closet, and a mechanical room. On the third floor, you're going to have to come up with some kind of design to try and fit 7 offices, restrooms for women and men, and a mechanical room. Obviously, you can see here there's no description for sizes of rooms or anything like that. Obviously, this client doesn't really, are not sure what they want to do yet, but they have an idea of this is what they're looking for. So they're coming to you and they're wanting you to kind of see if you can come up with something that'll fit their overall ideas. Now, the fun part for y'all is to figure it out. Because as architects, what we're really looking to do is we're problem solvers and we're trying to solve this problem for this client. So the second floor is actually not that hard because they only want 4 office spaces. And as you've seen, it's a very large office space. They want restrooms for men and women, a janitor's closet, and a mechanical room. So with all the space that's available on the second floor, you should be able to get that kind of laid out as best you can. So obviously when you're doing that from the first floor, we know that the stairs are going to be coming from here, from this area. So you'll want to make sure that this space is similar to the one above it. And then you kind of have carte blanche to create the spaces that you want in the rest of the room, the layouts and things like that. You want to think about your design strategy with that and how those work. You can see that the first floor, you can pull ideas from the first floor, how you want that to be laid out, and have that similar. And then on the third floor, you're going to want to do the same thing. So in order to add the third floor, we're going to jump back into a south elevation. And at this time, we're going to go ahead and go to our level tool, and we're going to add another elevation. Remember, I'm just kind of picking arbitrarily where I want that to go, and I'm going to drag that over. So this is no longer going to be my roof level. I have this level 3. Yes, I want this populated through the rest of it. This is going to be changed to roof level. Yes, I want this changed throughout the rest of it. And I'm going to leave this at 31 feet. You can make these heights whatever height that you want to make. The minimum obviously would be 10 feet. Some people like to do something a little bit more grand. So if you wanted to do that at 12 feet or whatever, you just have to make sure that you adjust that at this time. But you can change these heights to whatever you want. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and highlight this roof. I'm going to change that from level 3 to my roof level. And now we see we have 3 floors. Here's my level 3 and my roof level here. I jump into level 3 here. You may notice that there's this, you can see the roof at this area. And sometimes you'll notice that there's weird views on some of these. You'll notice that that has to do with the underlay, or is the base range, or look orientation. So we can adjust those at this time. In order to add our second floor here, we want to go to Architecture tab, our floor tool. Remember, we're all going to be using the floor wood joist 10 inches. I'll go ahead and add that. And hit yes. Let's jump to 3D. Now in my 3D model, you see I've got my first floor, my second floor, and my third floor ready to go. What you're to do within these different floor plans is, like on level 2, usually I'm very, I don't like to sketch or come up with some schematic designs within AutoCAD or Revit. Usually we do this sketch project in real time in classrooms with tracing paper, and that's how we do that in industry. Is we'll have the original drawing, and then we'll put the tracing paper over the original drawing, and that way you can sketch your second floor on top of it. Because much like we started out sketching at the beginning of class, there's just nothing, it's just easier to sketch out and throw away ideas on paper as opposed to doing them here. So you may want to print this out and sketch on top of it and then draw it in to kind of come up with some different ideas, because it really is a lot more creative in order to do that. And it goes a lot quicker just to do that. But in order just for things to work in this class, we're going to be just kind of working on these sketches either in Revit or however you can flex your creative juices to make this work as far as creating these new levels and plans that we want within here. So what you're going to do for level 2, refer back to this information, and we're going to see about how we're going to add 4 office spaces and the rest of this information into our level 2. So it really is a good space planning exercise on here. Notice here on my level, on my On my level 2, I can change the base underlay range from none to level 1. Now I can see my walls on level 1, and I can use that to kind of like practice laying out walls and things like that. So you can see I can lay this stair space right over that other one. And there's my stairway. We're obviously not doing stairs yet, but that is going to be our stairwell. Let me hide this. And then if I go back,
Does the stairs and the stairwell need to be fire rated?
that's a good question, and usually that would be something that's within your the scope of work. We're not going to be talking about structural in this class, just how to do it. But for this one, you can just use your regular walls, the walls that you created already from the first floor. Yeah, it's a much more technical question, but that we don't go into it too much in this class.
Okay.
All right. So after that, you can just kind of figure out how you want to lay out your walls from here, how to create that space. You can see for our second floor, if we're just creating the information that you're required, you have a lot of space to work with. Once you get to the third floor, it's going to be a little bit more complex as far as how you want to get things to be laid out. Always think about how you want things laid out. It's always easier to keep things running on top of each other, such as obviously stairs. You don't want to have one staircase over here and another staircase over here. HVAC information, mechanical rooms kind of stay in the same place. And then also your restrooms will be staying in the same place. That way all your plumbing is kind of running down at that same time. So what you will need to do for the next class, and this is going to be due on October 10th at 6, read through that schematic design information again, what you're going to be required to, and then go ahead and get that submitted with those 2 different floors.